Okay, guys, we are going to do the topic 3 review. Let's see if I can get this to fit a little bit better. Okay, so we are on page 121 in your workbook. Page 121. And just a reminder, this is just like the test or the summative. So you're definitely going to look over this page 121 and page 122. It is very, very similar to the test. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. And this is for topic 3, by the way. All right, Dr. Peterson works 178 hours each month. How many hours does she work in a year? So it gives us how much she works in a month, and we want to know how much she works in a year. So we need to think to ourselves, how many months are in a year? Well, that's 12. So I have 178 times 12. When I'm multiplying multi-digit numbers, I always start here in the ones place. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to multiply this 2 by every digit on top. 8 times 2 is 16, so I bring down my 6 and I carry my 1. 2 times 7 is 14, add the 1 is 15. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 more would be 3. Now, since I'm moving over here into the tens place, right, the value of this 1 is actually 10. I'm going to drop a 0 here. And you can go through 1 times 8 is 8, 1 times 7 is 7, and 1 times 1 is 1. Or you could just think to yourself 178 times 1 is 178. Now I have my 2 partial products, so I'm going to go through and add these 2 to get my final product. 6 plus 0 is 6. 8 plus 5 is 13. 7 plus 3 gives me 10. Plus 1 more is 11. 1 plus 1 is 2. So I get 2,136 hours. All right. Number 2, a banana contains 105 calories. Last week, Brendan and Leah ate a total of 14 bananas. How many calories does this represent? So if each banana is 105 calories, and together they eat 14 of them, here is my multiplication problem. So again, I'm going to start in the ones place. So I have a 4 in the ones. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to multiply every digit up top by this 4. So 4 times 5 is 20. I'm going to bring down my 0, carry my 2. 4 times 0 is 0. Don't forget that. But I still have to add 2. 4 times 1 is 4. And so now I can bring down my 0 since I'm moving to the tens place. And 1 times 105 is just 105. So now I can go through and add these. My 2 partial products, 0 plus 0 is 0. 2 plus 5 is 7. 4 plus 0 is 4. And 1 plus 0 is 1. So I have 1,470 total calories. All right, let's go ahead and look at number 3. Let's try this. Sorry about this. Let me just get this a little more organized. Okay. All right. Number 3. At a warehouse, 127 delivery trucks were loaded with 48 packages on each truck. Estimate the total number of packages on the trucks. Write an equation to model your work. Okay, and so something I want to point out to you guys is this says estimate. So maybe not all of us would pick the exact same numbers to round to, but as long as you can pick something around these and get an estimation and then be able to justify your answer, be able to say, yes, this is an overestimate or this is an underestimate, and be able to explain how. All right, so we're going to change 127. We're going to round that. I'm going to choose to round it to the nearest tens place. So I'm going to call that about 130 delivery trucks. And instead of multiplying by 48, I'm going to round this up a bit, also to the nearest tens place, and I'm going to say that's about 50 packages. And so I have a multiplication problem here, 13 times 5, which is 65. Now I'm going to add my 2 zeros. And so my estimate is about 6,500 packages. And so whenever I ask myself, did I calculate an overestimate or an underestimate and be able to explain? Well, the numbers that I picked are greater than the actual numbers. And so when we pick numbers that are greater than the actual numbers, we get an overestimate. So I got an overestimate. Because 130 is actually greater than 127, and 50 is greater than 48. And so if you would have chose numbers that were smaller than the actual numbers, then that would result in an underestimate. All right, let's go ahead and go back up. Okay, so number 4, is the equation below correct? Explain. 5 and 6 tenths times 10 to the third equals 560. So right away, I think many of you are going to say, oh, well, this is an exponent is a 3. I know that means 3 zeros. However, our number here is not a full number. It's a 1 and a 10th. So what you're going to do is you're going to think about the actual place value of this. So if I have 5 and 6 tenths being multiplied by 1,000, this number is actually getting, you're moving 3 place values. So some people think about moving the decimal like this, 1, 2, 3, and then putting zeros in my empty placeholders. I usually tell my students to think about the digits shifting. So this would go 1, 2, 3. The 5 would be here. And this would move 3 places as well. 1, 2, 3. And I would fill these in with zeros. And so I would get the same number, 5,600. And so then I'm going to go through and I'm going to decide, is this equation correct or incorrect? And what should the product look like? So the equation is incorrect. The product should have 3 zeros. That cannot be the option. I only have 2 zeros here. The equation is correct. Well, right away, I know it's incorrect, so that cannot be the choice. The equation is incorrect. The product should have 0 zeros. Not true. And so we look at D. The equation is incorrect. The product should have 2 zeros. And in fact, when I go back and check my work, it sure does. So we will be letter D, or that will be letter D. All right, we're going to go ahead and take a look at number 5. The latest mystery novel costs $24. The table shows the sales of this novel by a bookstore. So I'm going to look in the data table here. For each day of the week, I have how many books were sold. And I know that the cost is $24. All right, so A says, what was the dollar amount of sales of the mystery novel on Saturday? Write an equation to model work. So just a reminder, whenever we write an equation, that's from left to right or across, okay? So I'm going to look at the total sales for Saturday. So I'm going to go into my table and I see on Saturday there were 157 books sold. Each book costs $24. And so that right there is going to be my equation. Now here I can solve it off to the side. I have 157 times $24. Start by multiplying in the ones place. So 4 times 7 is 28. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 2 more would be 22. 4 times 1 is 4. Add 2 more is 6. I'm done with the ones place. I'm going to move over here to the tens place. So I'm going to drop a 0 and then multiply through by this 2. 2 times 7 is 14. Carry my 1. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 1 is 11. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. And so I have two partial products that I can add together now. 8 plus 0 is 8, 2 plus 4 is 6, 6 plus 1 is 7, and I'm just left with a 3 here. So the total sales on Saturday would be $3,768. Okay, let's take a look at letter B. What was the dollar amount of sales of the mystery novel on Friday? Write an equation to model your work. So again, I'm going to write an equation. And I'm looking at the sales for Friday this time. So I'm going to go up and look at my data table. Friday, I sold 103 books times $24 each. Oh, I'm going to go ahead and write my equation. 103. And so I'm going to go through and solve just the same way that I have every time. I'm going to start in the ones place and multiply through by 4. That should be your first partial product. I'm finished in the ones. I'm going to go through and multiply by the 10, so I have to drop the 0. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 0 is 0, and 2 times 1 is 2. So now I can add together my partial products. And so I get a total sales amount of $2,472. All right, please turn the page to page 22. Your test is going to be just the same, a front and a back. Okay, so if you look at number 6, I actually already filled this digit in on this one. You are going to get a 5 here, and there's a couple different ways you can go about it. So it says there are 45 cans of mixed nuts. Each can has 338 nuts. Below is Mary's work to find the total number of nuts. What is the missing number? So as I mentioned, you can set up your own multiplication problem. You can go through and check Mary's work here to make sure that you get the same partial products. And when you get to this part, you will realize that a 5 goes here. Or you can also take a look at these partial products. You know that you're adding them. And so when I check, 9 plus 2 will give me 11. So I have a 1 here, and then a 1 would be carried here. So that would give me a total right here, 7, plus some number would have to give me 12. 2, and then we have to carry a 1 here as well. So the digit has to be 5. And again, you can go through and multiply and check your work with this one and find the missing digit that way. All right, number 7. There are 36 large fish tanks at the zoo. Each tank holds 205 gallons of water. How many gallons of water would it take to fill all of the tanks? So I actually already have the problem set up on this one as well. If you have 205 gallons in one tank and you want to know how much it takes to fill up 36 large tanks, then that is what we're going to do here. 205 times 36, I can just multiply those. 6 times 5 is 30. 6 times 0 is 0, plus 3 is 3. 6 times 2 is 12. Move from the ones place to the tens place to drop a 0. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 0 is 0, plus 1 is 1. 3 times 2 is 6. And from here, I can add my partial products. 0 plus 0 is 0. 5 plus 3 is 8. 2 plus 1 is 3. And 6 plus 1 is 7. So we get 7,380 gallons of water. All right, let's move on down to number 8. I ordered 1,012 baseball cards. Sharon ordered 5 times as many cards as I. Write and solve a equation to find B, the number of baseball cards Sharon ordered. Okay, so again, you guys, whenever we write and solve an equation, we do that from left to right or across, not up and down. So we're going to set up our problem first, and then in this one, it says to find B, so we're just going to set it equal to B. That's the only thing different about this one, okay? So here is Kai's amount of cards. Sharon bought 5 times as much, so that is our problem, 1,012 times 5. And as I mentioned before, in our equation, we're going to set that equal to B. And so we can multiply 1,012 times 5. This is just a single digit on the bottom, so it's simple. 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times 1 is 5. Plus 1 is 6. 5 times 0 is 0. And 5 times 1 is 5. So we'll say that the number of baseball cards is equal to 5,060. Okay, let's move up to number 9. So this is a multiplication problem, just straight to the point here. So we have 289 times 16. This could be something that you would pause in the video, multiply for yourself, and then check. You can do that on all these problems, really. 6 times 9 is 54. 8 times 6 is 48. Plus 5 more will give me 53. 6 times 2 is 12. Plus 5 more is 17. I'm done with the ones place, moving to the tens place, so I put a 0. And 1 times 289, or 1 times 9 is 9. 1 times 8 is 8. And 1 times 2 is 2. So I have 2 partial products that I can add together. 4 plus 0 is 4. 9 plus 3 is 12. 8 plus 7 plus 1 more is going to give me 16. And 1 plus 1 plus 2 more is 4. So I get a final product of 4,624. All right, number 10. This is a review of powers of 10. So we're going to match each number on the left with the equivalent expression. Okay, so if we are looking for 12 times 10 to the 0 power, well, this is in the ones. Okay, so that's the same thing as 12 times 1. And you can use your place value chart on this summative as well. Here I have 12 times 100. So 1,200. I have 12 times 1, and then I'm adding 2 zeros. 12 times 10 to the 3rd power is the same thing as 12 times 1,000, so 12,000, or 12 times 1 and then add 3 zeros. And the last one is 12 times 10 to the 1st power, which we know is just 12 times 10, or 12 times 1 with 1 0, which is 120. All right, super good. So on number 11, we're going to select all the expressions that are equal to 3 times 10 to the 3rd power. So what you should do, students, is on your summative, I want you to go through each one and decide, is this statement true or false, okay? So start at the top. And let's think to ourselves, is 3 times 1,000 the same thing as 3 times 10 to the third power? Well, 10 to the third power is 1,000. So yes, that is true. 3 times 100, no, this is greater than 100. Also, this is 3 zeros, this is 2. So right away you should realize no. Here I have 30 times 100. And remember, when we're multiplying by a factor that already has a 0 in it, we count that 0. So 1, 2, 3 zeros. That matches the exponent. So that is true. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. That does not match. And the same thing here, multiplying 300 times 10 will still give you 3,000. Or 3 times 1 is 3 with 3 zeros behind it. So that is true. Number 12. Roseanne has 142 songs on her MP3 player. Teresa has 11 times as many songs as Roseanne. How many songs does Teresa have? Roseanne has 142 songs. Teresa has 11 times as much. And so I'm setting up my multi-digit multiplication problem. And multiplying by 11 is pretty easy. Just going to go through and multiply this 1 in the ones place. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 1 is 1. Or you can think about it like 1 times 142, which is still just 142. So I'm done in the ones place. I'm going to move to the tens. I drop a 0. And like I just said, 142 times 1 is itself 142. I'm going to add together my two partial products. 2 plus 0 is 2. 4 plus 2 is 6. 1 plus 4 is 5. And I'm left with a 1 here. So my answer is Teresa has 1,562 songs. All right. Good luck on your summative tomorrow. I'm sure you're all going to do great. If you have any other additional questions, make sure to reach out to your teacher.